Giving to the poor and needy may be the key to provision, healing, and answered prayers. Today, we're exploring the profound spiritual power of giving to those in need. From orphans and widows to the poor and oppressed, we'll discover how godly generosity reflects God's heart and impacts our spiritual and physical lives. The Bible is filled with verses that highlight the importance of caring for the needy. These verses remind us that generosity not only blesses others, but also enriches our own lives. We need to understand that God has a special concern for the marginalized, and when we follow God's commands, we can claim His promises over our situation. God is faithful and will answer us. Like Luke chapter 1 verses 45 says, "And blessed is she that believed, for there shall be a performance of those things which were told her from the Lord." So, I'm going to share 9 scriptures on this topic. I encourage you to read it for yourself, meditate on it, and do what it says. Number 1, when you give to the poor, God will pay you back. Proverbs chapter 19 verses 17 tells us, "He that hath pity upon the poor lendeth unto the Lord, and that which he hath given will he pay him again." This isn't just a suggestion, it's a divine principle. When we give to the poor, we are engaging in a spiritual transaction with God Himself. To lend to the Lord is to ensure blessing in return. God will certainly pay back what we have given in compassion to the poor. God promises that we will never be the loser for generous and compassionate giving. Number 2, when you give to the poor, you will be blessed. Proverbs chapter 22 verses 9. "He that hath a bountiful eye shall be blessed, for he giveth of his bread to the poor." Number 3, when you give to the poor, God will provide your every need. Proverbs chapter 28 verses 27. Those who give to the poor. Number 4 is a very, very powerful verse for breakthrough. When we fast, pray, and give, it unleashes the power of healing, and God promises to answer us and restore us. This is from Isaiah chapter 58 verses 6 to 11. Is not this the fast that I have chosen? To loose the bands of wickedness, to undo the heavy burdens, and to let the oppressed go free, and that ye break every yoke. Is it not to deal thy bread to the hungry, and that thou bring the poor that are cast out to thy house? When thou seest the naked, that thou cover him, and that thou hide not thyself from thine own flesh? Then shall thy light break forth as the morning, and thine health shall spring forth speedily, and thy righteousness shall go before thee. The glory of the Lord shall be thy reward. Then shalt thou call, and the Lord shall answer. Thou shalt cry, and he shall say, Here I am. If thou take away from the midst of thee the yoke, the putting forth of the finger, and speaking vanity, and if thou draw out thy soul to the hungry, and satisfy the afflicted soul, then shall thy light rise in obscurity, and thy darkness be as the noonday. And the Lord shall guide thee continually, and satisfy thy soul in drought, and make fat thy bones. And thou shalt be like a watered garden, and like a spring of water, whose waters fail not. Isaiah 58 presents a powerful message about the true nature of fasting and how it connects to acts of kindness and justice. The chapter reveals that God is not pleased with mere ritualistic fasting devoid of compassion and action. Instead, He desires a fast that is centered on social justice and helping those in need. Isaiah chapter 58 verses 6 to 7 emphasizes that the fast God chooses involves liberating the oppressed and helping the needy. Fasting should not be about self-affliction, but about aligning our hearts with God's compassion. When we fast with the intention of serving others, we shift our focus from ourselves to those in need, making our prayers more aligned with God's heart. Also, remember, the verses encourage us to feed the hungry, shelter the homeless, and to clothe the naked. When we actively seek to help those in need, our actions become a powerful expression of our faith. In verse 9, it says that when we call on the Lord, He will answer. By addressing the needs of others, we create a deeper connection with God, making our prayers more potent. Verses 8 to 11 promises that when we engage in this type of fast, our light will shine and our health will spring forth. This means that our physical and spiritual well-being is linked to our willingness to serve others. The act of giving and serving can lead to personal healing. So here we can see that when we do what God commands, we can see answered prayers, healing, and restoration in our lives. Again, I suggest that if you are in a very difficult situation, you feel like you're trying to move forward, but there's just a door in front of you that keeps blocking you, it's a good opportunity to fast, pray, do good, and seek the Lord, and just watch God perform. Okay, number 5. When you help the needy, you're practicing true Christianity. James chapter 1 verse 27. Pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this, to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction, and to keep himself unspotted from the world. By the way, my name is Nene, and welcome to my This is a channel where I share Christian faith-based content, mental well-being, and all things girly. So if anything you've heard so far have inspired you, please like and subscribe. Okay, now to number 6. 6. When we help the fatherless, the widow, the poor, the blind, and the lame, we are living righteously, just like how God bore testimony that Job was a righteous man. Job 29 verses 11 to 20 says, When the ear heard me, then it blessed me, and when the eye saw me, it gave witness to me, because I delivered the poor that cried, and the fatherless, and him that had none to help him. The blessing of him that was ready to perish came upon me, and I caused the widow's heart to sing for joy. I put on righteousness, and it clothed me. My judgment was as a robe and a diadem. I was eyes to the blind, and feet was I to the lame. I was the father to the poor, and the cause which I knew not I searched out. And I brake the jaws of the wicked, and plucked the spoil out of his teeth. Then I said, I shall die in my rest, and I shall multiply my days as the sand. My root was spread out by the waters, and the dew lay all nights upon branch. My glory was fresh in me, and my bow was renewed in my hand. Job's righteousness was not his own. There is no self-righteousness in our faith. Job's righteousness, like I said, was not his own. He said, I put on righteousness, and it clothed me. He was clothed with a righteousness which he had received by faith from God. And this is the outworking of his righteousness. In verse 18 to 20, Job believed that he would die happy and secure in his nest after a good long life. Verses 18 says, Then I said, I shall die in my nest, and I shall multiply my days as the sand. My root was spread out by the waters, and the dew lay all night upon my branch. My glory was fresh in me, and my bow was renewed in my hand. In the end, the Lord truly restored Job, giving him double what he had previously owned. Then all his brothers, sisters, and former acquaintances came to him, sharing a meal in his home. They comforted him and consoled him for all the hardships that the Lord had allowed him to endure. Each person gave him a piece of silver and a gold ring. Of course, you can read this in the book of Job. 7. When we are generous in giving, we will be enriched in every way so that we can be generous on every occasion. And through that, our generosity will result in thanksgiving to God. 2 Corinthians chapter 9 verses 10 to 12. Now he that ministereth seed to the sower, both minister bread for your food, and multiply your seed sown, and increase the fruits of your righteousness, being enriched in everything to all bountifulness, which causeth through us thanksgiving to God. For the administration of this service not only supplieth the want of the saints, but is abundant also by many thanksgiving unto God. 8. When we are generous with others, we often see that kindness repaid, especially in hard times. Those who are greedy or stingy frequently find themselves ignored during a crisis. Spiritually, God rewards those who recognize His ownership of all things and commit to using material resources to help others. Proverbs chapter 11 verse 24. There is that scattereth and yet increaseth, and there is that withholdeth more than is meet, but it tendeth to poverty. 9. When we are generous, we will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. Proverbs chapter 11 verses 25. The liberal soul shall be made fat, and he that watereth shall be watered also himself. I want to especially mention that prosperity is not the ultimate goal of God. In no way am I agreeing with prosperity gospel. In fact, the term is often misunderstood. It does not simply refer to having an abundance of wealth or material goods, but rather succeeding in the task God has called us to do. For example, when Paul prayed for a prosperous journey to Rome in Romans chapter 1 verses 8 to 10, and he received what he asked for, but he didn't travel in luxury. Instead, he went as a prisoner under guard, in chains, and faced a 14-day storm at sea. Nevertheless, it was a successful journey because it fulfilled God's promise. You can read this in Acts chapter 27 verses 1 to 28. This misunderstanding that biblical prosperity means, physical money, wealth, perhaps shift from the change in the meaning of the word prosperity. Today, it often denotes wealth and abundance, but in biblical terms, it signifies success, like I said before, actually achieving what God calls us to do. God told Joshua, "If you obey my commands, you will make your way prosperous and have good success." Joshua didn't travel comfortably. He was a soldier who lived in fields during wartime. Joshua chapter 1 verses 7 to 8. Only be thou strong and very courageous, that thou mayest observe to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded thee. Turn not from it to the right hand or to the left, that thou mayest prosper whithersoever thou goest. This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. Although his life was difficult, he was prosperous because he achieved his goals, and more specifically, the goals God called him to do. If we interpret prosperity as success, we can gain a clear understanding of God's intentions. God desires for each of us to prosper and succeed in the tasks He has called us to do. So, how can we practice this in our daily lives? Start by identifying opportunities to help those around you. Remember Job's example in Job chapter 29 verses 11 to 17, where he cared for the poor and needy, bringing joy to those in distress. So for example, you can set out volunteer time every month to offer your time to local shelters, soup kitchens, and community programs. Maybe offer to tutor your neighbors' kids, or if you have the money to do so, get a bag of groceries for your neighbor if you can tell that perhaps they're struggling. If you have extra clothes, donate them. You can if you have an extra bag of bread or something like that, give it to those in need. If you see a beggar on the street, you can get them some food, some water, something that they might need. Also, you can advocate for justice, speak up for the oppressed and support initiatives that help them. Just like in Leviticus chapter 19, 9 to 10, God instructs us to leave the corners of our fields for the poor. Although most of us don't farm nowadays, but this shows that even in biblical times, in the Old Testament, God told his people to have that in mind. It was woven into the fabric of the society. So this shows that caring for the needy should be woven into the fabric of our lives, not just an occasional act. So when we give, we align ourselves with God's heart. God promises that when we care for others, our own needs will be met. When we act justly and generously, we open the door to God's blessing in our lives. As we reflect on our lives, let's ask ourselves, what kind of righteousness are we practicing? Is it merely religious, like those in Isaiah's days who honored God with their lips but ignored the needy? You can read this in the book of Isaiah. Or are we embodying a faith that actively cares for others? Proverbs chapter 21 verse 13. Whoso stoppeth his ears at the cry of the poor, he also shall cry himself, but shall not be heard. Let's not turn a blind eye to those in need around us. When we reach out to help the needy, we are living out the gospel in a tangible way. Remember Proverbs 28 verse 27 states, He that giveth unto the poor shall not lack. In closing, let's commit to being a blessing to others. The spiritual power of giving is not just in the act itself, but in the heart behind it. As we give, we reflect God's love and compassion, making a difference in the lives of those who need it most and our own lives. So follow God's commandment and pray His word over your situation. I look forward to hearing your testimonies. If you found this message inspiring, please like, share, and subscribe, and also comment for more content on living out your faith through action. Together, let's make an impact in our lives and in others' lives. Thank you, and God bless. Bye-bye.